Israel is mostly an arid place. The founding fathers realized that without water, there's no life.
It's a real mission, valuable mission that you're doing for the people of Israel.
When Israel started pumping massive amounts of fresh water into one of the world's harshest deserts, people thought they'd lost their minds.
In 3 months, we plan and design the new national water system of Israel.
Water is precious anywhere, but pouring it into sand?
We decided that drinking water would come from the sea.
That seemed like the ultimate waste. The international community watched with skepticism, shaking their heads at what looked like an expensive mistake. But a few decades later, something remarkable happened.
Huge infrastructure, unprecedented infrastructure are being built now.
If you said to anyone 20 years ago, this is what's going to happen with Israel, they're like, no way. It's nothing short of a miracle.
That barren wasteland started producing food. Forests appeared where they shouldn't exist, and what was once considered dead land became one of the most productive regions in the entire country.
And this provides more than 80% of drinking water.
It's very substantial.
Yeah.
The Negev Desert Challenge. The Negev Desert isn't just any desert. It's a brutal expanse of sand dunes, rocky mountains, and deep craters that covers over 5,000 square miles. To put that in perspective, Israel's total land area is only about 8,100 square miles. That means more than 60% of the entire country is desert. Most nations would write off such territory as unusable, maybe good for military testing or tourism, but not much else. The conditions there make life incredibly difficult. Average daily temperatures swing from 77 to 88 degrees Fahrenheit depending on which part you're in, but those are just the averages. During summer months, temperatures can spike to nearly 122 degrees. The heat isn't even the worst part. It's the lack of water. In the southern Negev, you're looking at less than an inch of rain per year. During summer, there's literally no precipitation at all. The northern section gets slightly more, around 8 inches annually, which sounds better until you realize the Sahara Desert gets about 4 inches. So yes, the northern Negev is only twice as wet as the Sahara. The terrain offers little comfort. Sand dunes climb up to 100 feet high. Rocky, dusty mountains dominate the landscape. Sparse vegetation struggles to survive, mostly consisting of short bushes and the occasional stunted tree. This was the geographic reality Israel faced. More than half the country was essentially uninhabitable wasteland. For a small nation ranked 148th in the world by land area, that was a serious problem. They couldn't afford to leave 60% of their territory unused. David Ben-Gurion's Desert Vision. David Ben-Gurion, one of Israel's founding fathers and its first prime minister, had a vision that most people considered crazy. He kept insisting that the Negev needed to be developed, that it could support life and contribute to the nation's future. His famous phrase was that the Negev must be made to bloom. This wasn't just poetic language. He genuinely believed that with enough determination and innovation, the desert could be transformed into productive land. The international community didn't share his optimism. Experts pointed out the obvious. Deserts are deserts for a reason. You can't just will them into fertility. The costs would be astronomical, the engineering challenges immense, and the likelihood of failure high. Why pour resources into such an uncertain endeavor when the country had so many other pressing needs? Ben-Gurion didn't live to see the full transformation of the Negev, but he set in motion a series of decisions that would prove the skeptics wrong. His vision went beyond just agriculture. He saw the Negev as a test of Israel's creative potential and innovative energy. He believed that if Israel could make the desert productive, it would prove something fundamental about what human ingenuity could achieve. It was an audacious goal for a young nation with limited resources, but the alternative was accepting that more than half the country would remain empty and useless forever. Building the national water carrier. In 1964, Israel completed one of the most ambitious infrastructure projects in its history, the national water carrier. This wasn't just a simple pipeline. It was an integrated system of giant pipes, open channels, tunnels, reservoirs, and massive pumping stations stretching about 80 miles. The primary goal was to pump water from the Sea of Galilee, Israel's most important freshwater reservoir, down to the densely populated center in the dry southern regions. The engineering challenges were substantial. Water had to be transported across varying elevations, through different types of terrain, in a climate where evaporation could waste enormous quantities. The pumping stations they built could handle up to 19 million gallons every hour, or 449 million gallons per day. That's a staggering amount of water moving through a system that had to be reliable, efficient, and scalable. Looking at a map, you might think the main pipeline barely touches the Negev, running mostly through the western edge. But that main artery feeds into numerous secondary branches that penetrate deeper into the desert. These branches reach places like Beersheba, a city that now has over 200,000 residents. It's one of the top 10 most populated cities in Israel, and it's sitting right in the middle of the desert, hundreds of thousands of people living in a place where just decades earlier, only nomads and their camels could survive. That's a testament to how effective the water supply system became. The system's efficiency is remarkable. Water losses are only about 3%. Compare that to the United Kingdom, where losses reach 20%, Bulgaria at 50%, or Romania at 70%. Practically every gallon transported through Israel's system reaches its destination. This level of efficiency meant that the massive investment in infrastructure wasn't being wasted through leaks and poor maintenance. When the water ran low, the system worked brilliantly until it faced a crisis. The Sea of Galilee started running low. A series of droughts hit the region, and suddenly the main water source for the entire national water carrier was in trouble. Freshwater levels were constantly monitored, and it became clear that pumping from the Sea of Galilee at previous rates wasn't sustainable. Israel needed a new solution, and fast. The answer was desalination. Israel built a series of desalination plants along the Mediterranean coast, transforming seawater into freshwater. These weren't small operations. The most advanced station, called Sorek, has a capacity of 39 billion gallons of desalinated water annually. Other plants add capacity starting at 23 billion gallons each. Together, these facilities fundamentally changed Israel's water equation. But here's where things get really interesting. They didn't just use the desalinated water to replace what they were taking from the Sea of Galilee. They actually reversed the flow. Through infrastructure improvements costing about $250 million, they connected each desalination plant to the main water system and started replenishing the Sea of Galilee with water from the Mediterranean. The natural reservoir that had been depleted was now being refilled with water that had been completely unusable just years before. This meant the Negev desert was increasingly being supplied with desalinated seawater. Hundreds of millions of gallons of water that once would have required rain or natural springs was now coming from the ocean through high-tech processing plants. It was an expensive solution, but it worked. The desert's water supply became more secure and less dependent on unpredictable rainfall, the triple water strategy. Israel's water supply for the Negev doesn't rely on a single source. It's actually a sophisticated three-pronged approach that maximizes every possible resource. The first source, as we've discussed, is desalinated seawater from the Mediterranean. This has become increasingly important and now represents a major portion of the total supply. The second source is underground aquifers, particularly the mountain aquifer. Its safe yield, meaning the amount that can be sustainably extracted without causing harm, is about 95 billion gallons per year. However, as of 2023, Israel was actually pumping out about 158 billion gallons annually. That's nearly double the sustainable rate, which is obviously risky. Aquifers don't refill quickly, especially in arid climates. Overpumping can completely drain them, and there's another serious danger. Beneath these freshwater aquifers lies salt water. If you pump too much fresh water out, salt water can seep up and contaminate the entire system. Israel recognizes this risk, which is why they're increasingly shifting toward desalination to reduce pressure on underground sources. The third source is the most innovative, recycled wastewater. Starting in the 2000s, Israel invested more than $750 million in wastewater treatment infrastructure. They built 67 large processing plants, with the 10 biggest handling over 56% of the country's wastewater. Here's the stunning figure. Israel reclaims 87% of all the water that goes down drains and sewers. Compare that to the United States, where the rate doesn't even reach 10%. The main reclamation system is Shafdan, located in the Tel Aviv area. It treats about 97 million gallons of wastewater daily. After treatment, much of this water is pumped through pipelines down to the Negev. It's not used for drinking, obviously, but it's perfectly safe for irrigation. In fact, this reclaimed water irrigates about 60% of all the greenery in the Negev desert. The combination of these three sources, desalinated seawater, underground aquifers, and recycled wastewater, creates a relatively stable and sufficient supply for the desert's growing needs. Yatir Forest, a forest where it shouldn't exist. Now we get to one of the most visible and surprising results of pouring water into the desert, Yatir Forest. This is a planted forest covering 11 square miles in the northern Negev. It's not a natural forest. Every tree was deliberately planted by humans in a place where forests simply don't exist naturally. The total number of trees reaches about 4 million, and they're primarily Aleppo pines, which make up roughly 90% of the forest. Without this intervention, the area would host only low shrubs like Jerusalem sage and some hardy grasses. Instead, there's now a proper forest at the edge of a desert, which confuses plenty of visitors who don't expect to see pine trees in such an environment. But Yatir wasn't planted for aesthetics or to confuse tourists. It serves several critical functions. First, it acts as a barrier against desertification. The forest literally stops the spread of desert sands. It's been standing for 60 years now, and it continues to hold its ground against the harsh conditions. Second, Yatir is a massive carbon sink. For over 15 years, researchers have studied the forest and found that it absorbs carbon at rates comparable to forests in much wetter regions. That's remarkable considering the climate and limited water availability. Third, the forest helps retain moisture. When the area does get its rare rainfall, the trees block direct sunlight from hitting the ground, which significantly reduces evaporation. This creates slightly better conditions for other plants and wildlife. Yatir has also become a research site. It's part of NASA's FluxNet project, a global network of towers that measure exchanges of carbon dioxide, water vapor, and energy between land ecosystems and the atmosphere. The Arava Institute for Environmental Studies operates there as well, conducting research on crops like dates and grapes grown near the forest. They're trying to figure out how to bring new agricultural possibilities to dry and salty regions worldwide. But like everything else, there are downsides. Over the past decade, 5 to 10% of Yatir has dried up and died due to extreme droughts. The forest isn't recovering in those areas, partly because of ongoing climate issues, and partly because sheep and goats graze there and eat young pine saplings before they can mature. There's also an ecological trade-off. This area was never naturally a forest, so local species evolved to thrive in open shrubland. Birds of prey need open landscapes to hunt. Small animals, insects, reptiles, and birds depend on the soil crust and the small plants, lichens, and fungi that grow naturally. Heavy machinery and herbicides used during the forest's establishment probably damaged some of these delicate desert ecosystems. So while Yatir is impressive and serves important functions, it's not a perfect solution without consequences. Desert agriculture that defied logic. Agriculture in the Negev desert sounds impossible, yet this arid region produces about 40% of Israel's total agricultural output. How does that work? The answer involves the water infrastructure we've discussed, combined with revolutionary farming techniques that squeeze maximum productivity from every drop. Israel as a whole is an agricultural powerhouse despite its small size and limited water. Israeli dairy cows produce an average of 3,130 gallons of milk per year, compared to 2,640 gallons in North America and 1,580 gallons in Europe. Tomato yields hit 300 tons per 2.4 acres, while the global average is just 50 tons. Citrus production reaches 262 tons per 2.4 acres, exceeding North America's 243 tons and Europe's 21 tons. These aren't small improvements. They're massive differences in productivity. In the Negev specifically, farmers grow an impressive variety of crops: sunflowers, wheat, melons, chickpeas, pomegranates, almonds, and olives. They even grow cotton, one of the most water-intensive crops imaginable. That's not something you'd expect to see thriving in a desert. Farmers at Kibbutz Saad report harvesting 3.5 tons of sunflowers, 7 tons of wheat, and 6.5 tons of cotton per 2.4 acres in good years. Those might not sound like huge numbers at first, but they're actually quite respectable yields, especially considering where they're being produced. Israel ranks first globally in the total value of fruit production relative to its land area, ahead of Pakistan, Portugal, and New Zealand, all of which have much larger territories. The Negev, that harsh desert covering more than half of Israel's land, contributes 40% of the nation's agriculture. That's not just impressive, it's almost unbelievable. The secret weapon is drip irrigation, which started gaining widespread use in Israel during the 1950s. The concept is simple but effective. Instead of flooding fields with water and letting it run everywhere, you deliver water directly to the root zone of each plant in small, controlled portions through drip emitters. This method dramatically reduces water usage. It also reduces erosion, limits weed growth since only the desired plants get watered, and allows for precise control over fertilizer delivery. Drip irrigation does cost more upfront compared to traditional flooding methods. You need specialized equipment, tubing, emitters, and control systems. But in the Negev's context, the higher cost is irrelevant. Without drip irrigation, large-scale farming simply wouldn't be possible. The water demands would be so high that no supply system could keep up. With drip irrigation, the desert becomes productive farmland that feeds the nation and generates export revenue. Fish pampusi, farms in the sand. Just when you think Israel's desert innovations couldn't get stranger, they start farming fish in the middle of the Negev. Yes, commercial aquaculture operations producing thousands of tons of fish annually, located in one of the driest places on Earth. How is that possible? A few decades ago, scientists discovered that beneath certain parts of the desert, about 50 to 100 feet below the surface, there's geothermal water. This water sits at temperatures around 98 to 104 degrees Fahrenheit and has relatively low salt content. It's been there for thousands of years, left over from when the region was much wetter. Ancient rainfall soaked into the ground, accumulated in underground reservoirs, and slowly warmed up from geothermal heat. Researchers realized this warm water creates ideal conditions for raising various fish species, including tilapia, bream, barramundi, catfish, and even ornamental species like guppies and clownfish. But the innovation goes beyond just raising fish in desert water. They created closed-loop systems that maximize efficiency and minimize waste. Here's how it works. Fish are raised in tanks filled with the warm geothermal water. As they live and grow, they release metabolic waste into the water. This waste is actually rich in nutrients that plants need. Instead of treating it as a disposal problem, the fish farm owners pump this nutrient-enriched water out to nearby agricultural fields. Crops absorb the nutrients through their roots, essentially cleaning the water in the process. The water then returns to the fish farming operation in nearly its original state, ready to be used again. One commercial operation produces about 2,000 tons of barramundi annually on an 86-acre site located above a geothermal water source. The warm water, perfect for barramundi, is pumped into internal systems. After the fish enrich it with their metabolic waste, a portion is discharged to irrigate nearby olive groves. This integration of aquaculture and agriculture creates synergies that make both operations more productive and sustainable. It's a perfect example of thinking creatively about resources. Most people see desert as a place with no water. Israeli scientists found ancient water underground and figured out how to use it for multiple purposes simultaneously. The result is commercial fish farming in one of the last places on Earth you'd expect to find it. Powering the future with sunlight. David Ben-Gurion hoped the Negev would eventually help the rest of the country with renewable energy. He probably didn't imagine exactly what form that would take, but his vision has proven accurate. The desert's vast, unused land and constant sunshine make it perfect for solar energy projects. The Ashalim Power Station, located south of Beersheba in the heart of the Negev, is the crown jewel of Israel's solar energy push. What makes it unique is that it combines 3 different solar technologies on a single site, allowing for comparison and optimization of different approaches. The first section is a parabolic trough plant with a capacity of 121 megawatts. It uses long, curved mirrors to concentrate sunlight onto pipes containing a heat transfer fluid. The heated fluid generates steam, which drives turbines to produce electricity. This system can store thermal energy for up to 4.5 hours, allowing it to continue generating power even when the sun isn't shining. The second section is a solar power tower surrounded by 50,600 heliostats. These are basically motorized mirrors that automatically track the sun's position throughout the day, reflecting sunlight onto a central receiver at the top of a tower. The concentration of all that reflected sunlight creates intense heat, which again generates steam for power production. This section produces about 320 gigawatt-hours of energy per year. The tower itself stands 853 feet tall and was until recently the tallest solar power tower in the world. The third section is a more conventional photovoltaic solar farm with a capacity of 30 megawatts. It doesn't generate as much power as the other two sections, but it adds to the total output and provides a baseline of energy production using proven technology. Together, the Ashalim complex produces enough electricity to power about 120,000 homes. That's significant for Israel's domestic energy needs, and it also provides power for the agricultural operations and other infrastructure in the Negev. Ben-Gurion's prediction that the desert would become an energy producer has come true in a way that perfectly suits the region's characteristics. The transformation of the Negev shows what's possible when a nation refuses to accept a geographic limitations as permanent. That supposedly crazy idea of pouring billions of gallons of water into a desert has turned more than half of Israel's territory from a liability into a productive asset. The desert now grows food, supports cities, captures carbon through planted forests, produces renewable energy, and even farms fish. Other arid regions around the world are watching closely, because if Israel can do this in the Negev, maybe similar approaches could work in the Sahara, the Atacama, or the Australian outback. The desert bloom Ben-Gurion dreamed about has become reality, and it's teaching the rest of the world that with enough innovation and determination, even the harshest environments can be transformed.